Hi everyone. Today we're going to look a bit more at the animation component. So I have a scene loaded on Glitch already with a box object and a sphere. And we've already looked at the way that components change entities and the basics of the animation component. Let's go back to the animation component on the documentation on the site and look a bit more at it. I have it here loaded already. So we know that we have component values that we can animate, like position and property values, which we haven't done yet. So we're going to look at animating different properties of components. So this is the two examples that they give us, the position and animation, property, position, duration, easing. Let's look at what all of those things mean in a little bit more detail. So I have my box and I'm going to add in an animation component and I have to tell it the property that I am going to animate. So I'm going to animate the position and I'm going to go from the position where it's at. So I'll write from 1, oops, you have to put colon, -3 to, I'll do 0, 4, and -3. And I'll give it a duration of 3 seconds, which is 30,000 milliseconds. Okay, so let's refresh that. So it goes from the original position to the position that I told it to, and I'm only animating the Y position. So it goes from 1 to 4 on the Y axis in 3 seconds. And between the 1 and 4, it's evenly spacing out the animation, so we have just an even motion between the two. That is called tweening. So when you see the word tweening, it means the way that it's kind of going frame by frame evenly between the two positions. I can make it go longer between the two positions and it will still evenly go in between those two positions at a slower pace. If I wanted to loop this so that it continuously goes, then I do loop true and it will go up and then we'll start over and loop from the original position. I'll make that 3,000. But let's say I wanted to loop and instead of jump back to the original position, I want it to slowly go up and down. That is what the direction element does. And if I say alternate instead of the default, which is just the normal, it will now alternate between the two positions. So it's going from 1 to 4 and then from 4 to 1 and now from 4 back to 1. So it's alternating between the two. If I write reverse, it will go from the top to the bottom and then jump back to the top and go back to the bottom. So alternate makes it switch between from and to and from, back and forth. Now you can see there's a kind of movement that transitions between the up and down. And that is what the easing is doing when we have that. So if I put linear, it's going to kind of stop. And then there's this little bit of a bounce. It's evenly spacing out between the 2 points and then it's immediately starting again. So there's this kind of bounce that happens. If I wanted to change the easing, so easing is a curve basically. And you can see this little animated thing on the side here that shows you how this motion is going to be. So we have these different types of things. So the motion can ease in and get faster as we go, or it can ease out. Here, let's see, where's ease out? And this one kind of jumps. Ease in, circle. So all of these easings are different ways that the tweening and the animation can go from the beginning to the end. It's kind of similar to when you fade in or fade out, except it's with the motion. So if we look back to the documentation here, we have the property to animate, the from and the to, the direction, normal, alternate, reverse, the duration, and then the easing. And here we have more information about the easing. So if we click on that, it tells us all the kind of easing that we can do. So we have the ease in, and that's sort of like the fade in of the motion. And these are all just mathematical terms for the curves, basically, of how the motion will ease in. Then we have the ease out, and then we have ease in and out. So this will be both the way it begins and ends. And then linear. So let's try an ease in and out instead of the linear that we have right now. And if I put this here, it should now ease in and out in a more spaced out way. So it's easing in and out. It gives us a more fluid flow between the two. So if you watch and I go back to the linear, you'll see the bounce come back. So there's a little bit of, it stops and then it goes, and then it stops and then it goes. It looks like it's hitting something with the linear, but the, oh, I forgot how to write that. Ease in, out, quad. You have to get the capitals correct. Now it will go smooth again. I can also add in a delay so that when my page loads, the animation doesn't start right away, but let's say I give it a 3-second delay. It'll wait 3 seconds and then the animation will begin. So I could make this box something that is stationary for a long time. I'll give it a 10-second delay. And then after 10 seconds, so let's say 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now the box will go. And then it will continue on the loop. So the delay is the initial delay of when the animation begins to play. And that's useful if you want to layer different kinds of animations. Let's look at something else with the animation component. So we have the loop. So we can also loop. So true will mean it will repeat infinitely, but we can also change the loop to only loop a certain amount of time. So I could have this loop 4 times. And here I'll change the delay to 2 seconds. So now I'll wait 2 seconds and it will go. And it will go 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then it will stop. So that's because it's looping 4 times. It's going from, to, from. So it really just means 4 times, from to 4 times. So that's up, down, up, down. I'll put it back to true. But now that I have animated my property position, let's say I want to also animate the rotation position. I have to give it a second animation. And that is here, multiple animations. So we can only animate one property at a time with the animation designation. So we have to give it an indication that we're doing a second animation, and we can do that by double scoring twice and then writing anything that we want to name our second animation. So I could now space and do animation for the rotation, and I can just have to underscore twice, and I'll just say second equals property rotation. And we'll go from, it's 0, 0, 0 degrees, rotations in degrees, to 180, 0, 0, which is around the x-axis, and the duration will be 3,000 also. So now it's only done it once, so I'm going to make it loop. So I'll do loop true, and it will continuously rotate around the x-axis while it bounces up and down. But again, you can see there's a kind of moment where it stops. So I want to also change the easing on that, and I'll do this same easing. That didn't do. Oh, I know what I want to do. I want to do, it's the direction, alternate. Oh, wait, is that right? See how that works? Oh, that's going to go back and forth. Let's try a linear one on this. Sometimes it's hard to know how the easing is going to affect. Oh, there, actually the linear easing on the rotation works well. It looks like it's just continuously rotating. If you notice though, the cube begins spinning before it starts to rise up in the air, and that's because my first animation has a delay of 2 seconds. I could add a delay on my rotation also, and it won't start to rotate or lift until both delay 2 seconds. So you can make the delay a different amount. I could make the delay 5 seconds, and it will start to lift up in the air first, and then it will start to rotate. And I can keep adding in animations for different properties as long as I do a double underscore and I name it something else. So let's look at another property that we can animate, but that requires us to do something slightly different, and that is a component that has multiple properties. And an example of that is the material. So this is how we write something that has a property, a component that has multiple properties. So material, color is only one of the properties of material. So when we write it, we want to write it in this way where it has material dot color attached to it. So let's look at that with the sphere. So if I go to the sphere now and I write animation is property equals oh wait, not equals. You want colon material dot property, nope, material dot color. And then I go from the color that it is right now. And then I go to let's get a color from the HTML color codes. Let's go to green. Oops, what am I missing? I'm missing something. There's quotations, animation. There we go. So now it is, by default, it has a duration of 1 second. So I'm going to change the duration to 3 seconds. It is tweening between purple and green evenly and slowly changing along the color spectrum from purple to green. Why didn't it work this time? Oh, it's because I'm missing a semicolon there. There we go. So now it's going to slowly turn from purple to green. If I bring it up to red or this orange, let's see what that does. So it slowly goes from purple to orange. I can also change, let's see, the we want that. And we want animation. Oops, that's it. Animation 2 underscore 2 equals property material opacity. And we go from one to 0 in the duration. Stir. Oh, that's what it is. This duration is also $3,000. So now my sphere disappeared because I made the opacity here. Let's make it disappear really slowly. I'll make it 20 seconds by doing 20,000. And it's going to change the color slowly over time. And then it's going to slowly disappear after 20 seconds. It will be totally invisible. And now it's gone. If I want to, I can loop that. Also, let's make it 10 seconds and loop true. So now it will change color slowly and opacity slowly over time. And I can do that. I can do both of these animations to both objects if I wanted it to change color and opacity and rotation and position. Oh, it popped up because these are not the same duration. It's going to not do this exactly how I want it to. Let me also loop this. Sometimes certain things can overlap in animations and cause it to do weird things. So especially if you do different durations on things. Or I could overlap it intentionally so that they're not going at the exact same time. I'm also going to add an alternating direction for the opacity so that it fades in and then fades out and then fades in and then fades out. Before, without it, it was just fading out and then resetting. So if I take that away, it'll reset and go back to fully opaque, and it has that kind of jump. But if I alternate the direction, it will fade in and then fade out and then fade back in again. So let's look at another entity to animate. Let's look at the text feature or primitive, text. So here we go, we have a text, and I'll paste that in there, and I'll give it a position 0, 1, and -2. And I'll say that I want to animate, animation equals. Now here's where the text properties are something we have to look at, because the text component has multiple properties or attributes that are mapped in the component this way. So this is here because it shows us how we can write it for when we want to animate this as a part of the component. So text.opacity is what we need to use instead of material.opacity, because that's how the text component works. So, oops, I have to write property is text opacity, and I will do from 0 to 1, and that's from 0 opacity, 0% opacity to 1. And the duration, I'll give it 3 seconds to fade in. And now it fades in from 0 and stays there. I want it to delay it for 2 seconds so that it waits 2 seconds and then it fades in. So let's see. All right, so it starts off as opaque already. So up here, we need to give it an opacity to begin with. So that it doesn't start off, by default, it will be 1. So now we don't have that where it, without this here, it is there right away, and then it goes away and fades in. So I need to start off with the opacity at 0, and now it will slowly fade in. I want it to slowly fade in and slowly fade out and then go away. So I will add a direction to alternate, and then I'm going to loop it twice. So now it fades in and then it fades out. Maybe it's 5 seconds. It takes 5 seconds to fade in and then 5 seconds to fade out about. Okay, so now this is handy because I can use this to create a title sequence. I'm gonna put this up a little higher to begin with. And I'm going to copy this and paste it. And then I'm going to say, this is a title sequence. And I'll give this position, let's start it a little lower so you can see. Right? So it says, hello world, this is a title sequence. But they're both showing up at the same time, and that's not what I want. I want them to show up in succession. So what I'm going to do, I also want them closer. I'm going to put this one at 1.8. Okay, so hello world. This is a title sequence. So I wanted to say hello world, and then this is a title sequence. So I have to space them out with the delay and the duration. So my first one plays after 2 seconds. It fades in for 5 seconds, and then it fades out for another 5 seconds. So 5 plus 5 plus 2 is 12 seconds total. So now for my second one, if I delay it 12 seconds, it should first be the hello world for 12 seconds. And then when that fades out, the second one will start to show up after that one is gone. So now I can put them in the same position. And they won't overlap because they are appearing at different points in time. So they're both in the same position, 0 to -2. But because they don't appear with the same opacity at the same time, you only see one and then another. So now I want to give directions to my visitor and say, use the WASD keys to navigate. But this one is delayed for 12 seconds, and then it loops for another 10 seconds. So I need to delay this, what, 22 seconds? So it says hello world, and then this is the title sequence, and then use the WASD keys to navigate shows up. Let's look at that on the big screen. There we go. So this is a way that you can add in different elements to your scene that maybe only appear and go away and then they never come back again. So this might be my intro. I might have my title there and then some directions for the people. So use the WASD keys to navigate. So I would start doing that, and then this will go away, and then it will never come back again because I've only given it that amount of time to appear. And that's kind of just a little intro that I've given to my piece to let people navigate, to let them know how to navigate, and then that doesn't need to be there anymore. So those are some of the things that the different parts of the animation component are doing, it can be a bit confusing to sort of think about the duration amount and the direction and the looping and the delay. It's not normally how we think of animating because it's not frame by frame, it's a real-time animation, and we have to tell it to stop and start, which is a little bit counterintuitive if you've animated in another way before. But those are the parts of the animation component that are really going to give us all of the things that we need for your current projects. There's other things on here that if you look into might get a little bit confusing. So don't worry about some of the things like the events. We're not yet using animation that happen through interactions. And basically the few things that we went over: delay, direction, duration, easing, loop, from and to, can, and the property can do a lot of things to animate things in your scene. So make sure that you try this out, try a text, do a few different things. See if you can add a title sequence to your project. And in the next tutorial, we'll look at how do we bring in more complex animated objects like creatures and humanoids, and what can we do with those?